Doodlebud here. What you're looking at is the new Xtool F1 Ultra with a conveyor system and some other accessories and goodies. This was very kindly provided to me by the great folks over at Xtool. I have been spending a bunch of time doing all sorts of projects, showing you what this machine can do, what it can't do. Also, for my regular crowd out there, I normally do fountain pen stuff. Why am I doing a laser? Why would you watch this one? Well, actually, I used the laser to cut this nib to make it more flexible on this pen. First prototype, but I got some ideas to make it even better. So all sorts of different stuff I'm going to go through, but first, let's get into some specs. So why is this being called the Ultra? Well, there's many reasons behind it. One, let's just first talk about engravable area. We have 220 square millimeters of engravable area. That's like just over 8.5 inches for you non-metric folks. As a comparison, well, first, this is a jig, but this is a jig to fit the regular F1. So you can see the area is significantly different. So that's an Ultra feature. If you want to grow it even more, you add on the conveyor belt. Now instead of 220 by 220, you got 220 by 500 millimeters. It allows you to do batches. I'm going to show you how to do it. It actually works surprisingly well. Also, longer items. You're going to see how this was done as well. So you can do this long barbecue scraper. You couldn't do that on regular units. Another thing for the Ultra is upgrades to the laser. We got two dots down there. One is blue, that's 455 nanometers. That's 20 watt galvo. So you still have the blue laser, which is really functional. I got other projects over here. Obviously, the other laser, that's a fiber laser. I'll talk about that in a second, but there is still a huge use case for having a blue laser. So the dual laser functionality is really cool. You can combine them. I have projects I've done as well. And then the other laser, the big part of the Ultra, is the 1064 nanometer infrared 20 watt fiber laser. A cool thing with the machine, in true Xtool fashion, it's all enclosed. So the safety is there with the shielding. Also, you don't have the big cable exposed. The fiber cable is inside the machine. So this isn't really portable like the F1, but you can actually move this around. I wouldn't be taking this everywhere I go. It's not mega portable like the F1 is with the handle and the case and everything else. But the fact you can actually move this around and not have to worry about breaking, potentially damaging the fiber optic cable that's on your standard fiber laser systems, that's a big plus with this. Of course, then you got the built-in air purification or just pulling it out. I had to drill a sizable hole on the side of my shop. So if that's something you're picking up, go on Amazon, order yourself a hole saw while you're at it. Another cool feature with the F1 Ultra is you have autofocus now as well. Again, it's not the hardest thing in the world to do, but in the software, I'm going to show all this stuff in the video. You just push a button, it aligns the beams, away you go. It doesn't work 100% perfectly all the time. Sometimes I was doing a blue business card, it was messing up on there. But I would say 9 out of 10, probably 19 out of 20 times, the autofocus works just great. You also have this nice little panel now. So much like a 3D printer, you can actually put jobs on a memory stick, have them on board. You can go into your menu. So I can go onto it and store jobs right on there to make production really quick. You can push the button on here, or this is one of the accessories, the extra little button. It's like a keyboard button, and actually this is my favorite. For most of the stuff, I'm just hitting this one. Brings back nostalgia on the old school keyboards. There is also a foot pedal option as well. The floor, I don't even want to show you the floor in this shop. It's terrible, so I'm not using it right now, but I'll probably be taking this to my office at some point to hook it up, and I'll be using the foot pedal then. There's also the large air purifier if you're not running the duct system as well. Again, I'm not having that in here. I got the duct system. So they got you covered for sort of everything you need. Now, who is this system not for? If all you're looking for is a really high-powered fiber laser and that's it, this might not be the machine for you. It can do a lot of great things because it's 20 watt fiber, but if you want to do those gorgeous deep engravings you see on pistols, for example, people do it on guns, they look amazing. I'm not a gun guy, but they look amazing. I appreciate the artwork. You're going to want a much higher powered laser, and if that's really what you're focusing on, this might not be the perfect machine for you. But if you want to be able to do pretty much every type of job there is out there, engrave every material there is, this thing has you covered. What I'll do is I'll just jump into the first thing you do when you get this machine is calibrate it. Now, the reason I found this impressive, my background, previous to what I do now, but for over a decade, I made precision laser measurement systems. So I was all about lasers and cameras and calibration. You simply put in a piece of photo paper, hit a button, a couple hash marks are made, and you follow the prompts. punch in the offsets for the alignment, and you're done. Now the first job I did when I finished the calibration, it said this has to go in this way with the veins going that way, not that way. So I thought, let's just engrave that on the back of this plate. Black anodized aluminum, hit it with the fiber, and this is my first time using a fiber. The difference is absolutely massive between the blue lasers. So for metal engraving and that type of stuff, wow, the fiber laser is awesome. Let's start going through and showing you some of the projects I did. This machine can do embossing on slate, on wood, also on metal. I wanted to test that out, so I got one of these stamps. Now I did it the other way. I did one way just on this dishwasher fitting I have. This is the file they sent and did the engraving that way. Looks really cool. I could stamp wax with that if I want to, but what I wanted to do was have it emboss into something. I want to see if I can press my little logo into this piece of leather. So this took a couple hours to run, but I'll play you a little bit of that fiber sound. Okay, so I'm not a leather expert at all whatsoever. Someone who is will be watching this possibly and just be cringing at what I'm doing here. I'm just gonna put it on. I got the leather a little bit wet. I could just give it a whack, but I don't want to damage the laser because I got to share the bench. All right, there we go. I'll just give it a light press in. That's actually a lot of force. Let's back it off and see how it looks. That's really crude and terrible, but if you know what you're doing, if you're doing some embossing, instead of always having to laser it, you could make the die and then just go ahead and do a whole bunch of them this way, and just maybe even hot foil. You can do the hot foil into the leather. The next thing I wanted to do was some cool high resolution stuff, so for that I got some black acrylic. So another part of the Ultra is the software. It generated all these images. I used the AI tool just to make these test images, and it just one spot. I didn't have to go to any external software. Everything was there. It took a couple minutes to get all this done and send it to the laser. We got a beautiful engraving with the IR, but what I was also able to do because of the blue laser is cut these out. You couldn't do that with a normal, just standard IR laser. If you have a CO2 laser and the wavelength is way higher, it can cut acrylic. But for most of the galvo systems that people are referring to out there, the fiber galvo systems, you can't cut acrylic with it. That's a great case for having the dual wavelength lasers. I'll show you really quick how I did these. So I went into XCS and generated some images using their AI. This is what we came up with. So I put some fun cues in there. That's Rodney Dangerfield. We have Bubbles from Trailer Park Boys trying to thread the needle, and he's looking very frustrated. And we have this older Sean Connery having a drink I put in there, and he's got a bit of a gorilla hand and some odd fingers. So I might do a few of these for now. I just want to do Bubbles. I'm going to do a test of the fiber IR versus the regular blue laser. So here we go. Let's take a look at the difference between the two lasers. Here we have the IR laser, and now here is the blue laser. So the difference in clarity and features that you're getting, it's very significant. This is another use case for having the dual laser. So the engraving is superior with the IR laser. You can get these just amazing images, tons of depth to it. Looks fantastic, but you couldn't cut the acrylic with it. So that's where the blue laser comes in. And it's just an extra layer. You just trace it out, cut it, away you go. Again, that's the great thing with the XCS software is the material database. First shot, it turned out perfectly like this. And I just used the settings they recommended in there. Next thing I did is a quick little project using the black acrylic again, cutting it with the blue laser, but then also cutting metal because we have the fiber laser. So this is a gold business card. Thought I'd get kind of creative. Let me show you that one. I'm trying to be super careful, but I think, yeah, look at that. We got this perfect little outline. I don't even know how thick that is. I'm going to measure what that is. We have a 0.9 millimeter wall thickness. Took it a step further, had an idea to do some wood. So same thing, engraved into the wood with the blue laser, cut it with the fiber. I'll show you that. I forgot to hit record. Looked really cool, but I didn't hit the button. But anyways, so those will just, you pick them out. They're on there, you know, they're pretty much mostly cut out. Pop them out like that. Let's try the inlay. I'm curious how well these fit. If I needed to do some type of kerf adjustment or something like that. Oh, that just fits nicely. Yeah, a little bit of glue. I'll see if I find some glue and I'll do this. Couldn't find my super glue, but there you go. Just put them in there. You get the idea. Now I selected this because this little stem, I thought surely that will snap off, but it actually cut it out. And it's going to fit in there. Look at that, I'm impressed. The 3D engraving, the embossing that you can do on materials with this system is really cool as well. You don't have to go anywhere else to generate these depth maps. You can do this right in the XES software. Of course, you can go other places as well. You can also still run Lightburn on this. But the great thing with Xtool is their software package has really grown exponentially since they first started. And they got you covered. They just want to make production and projects really simple for you. So I did these coasters. Let's check that out. What we're going to do now is some 3D depth engraving on these slate coasters. I already have one set up down there. I just put it on this plate here and put a piece of paper because I am curious. This is going to remove a lot of material, just how much gets accumulated on the paper for afterwards. I went ahead and I used Xtool software to do all of this. This is obviously a Buddha that's in there, and you just simply go into the software, you pick out your shapes, and as you go further down, they already have some stuff for embossment. Now you can get other software and do the 3D depth maps, but let's just go with what Xtool has. So it's fairly straightforward to do. You just follow the steps. You choose the emboss up here. You're going to set your number of layers. I'm using the preset settings. I chose a rock coaster from the database, so Xtool makes it super simple. We're going to just stick with those settings and let it work its magic. Now you can go on here. They have an embossment preview, so that's going to generate onto the screen, and you can see here what it's going to do is sort of frame it. Now I have round coasters and I don't like that extra framing, so I'm going to try something here. I selected the image and then I'm going to hit edit image. I'm going to use the magic wand tool and I want to erase the background. There's a few little sprinkly bits left there, but we'll see how that looks. Then I can go back to the emboss preview, generating it, and I think that's going to be good now. So it's removed that frame, and so it should be just the Buddha that gets engraved into the Costa. Everything looks good. Took a little bit to generate it. You gotta have a little patience, and we're just under 2 hours and 12 minutes. I run this whole channel off my phone. I'm not going to do a 2-hour time lapse on my phone. So shields down. I'm going to turn on the duct fan here in a moment. I was sent an air purifier to run with this as well. I'll use that when I take this to my office and set it up. This will generate a lot of debris and dust since we're blading quite a bit of material. So if you're planning to do coasters like that, get yourself a duct fan, whether it's the Xtool one or a different one. You'll notice in the embossing settings there is an angle feature. So what that does is it changes a sweep angle between each pass. This way it avoids creating regular patterns in your engravings. First off, I'm fairly impressed by how much the fan sucked up. That's a lot less dust than I expected. We got some residue on here. Let me quickly dust this off. I'm back from the sink, everything's cleaned out, and I returned with an extra coaster. This is the following day. I thought it looked so good, I needed to do another one. So there's some nice detail. You can see the engraving. I mean, this is really impressive, I have to say. Really nice stuff as well. This is, of course, just happened to drop it on the floor just before doing the video to crack the edge. But if you can see it here, okay, there it is. I noticed this during the layers. We got some little anomalies in the slate. So you will have minerals in the slate, and it's a different density, you know, than the rest of the material, than the rock. So if you run into that, if you can see that there, you can have some anomalies in your engraving. So keep that in mind when you do this depth engraving. I just had a look at it. It might even be a little bit of pyrite that's in there. But keep that in mind if you have a perfectly, let's say they showed up in this flat spot here. It's just you won't be able to get rid of them. You're going to have a little blip in your coasters. The XES software made these super easy to do and have the depth maps all done up, but the time is very consuming. So this was whatever it was, just over 2 hours, and this one, because we were removing a lot more material, closer to 3 hours. So I'm not sure if these are going to be something you do on the regular, like a pack of 4 for people and be able to make it affordable. You could do that. They're going to be quite expensive. This could be, though, like a special one-off. If someone wants a special, you know, stone plate, maybe it's for their dog or cat that passed away, you can do a custom one, charge a little more of a premium because you can do it 3D. But selling these in a 4-pack or something like that, versus just the regular engraving price, it's going to be very significant just to make up for the time it does take. After the coasters, I thought, let's see how this does on wood. You can do the same 3D embossing with the depth maps on wood because you have a blue laser. You could not do this with fiber. And we got some amazing detail on here. And again, another use case for the dual lasers. The one thing I'm curious about is the accuracy of the camera and the laser system. The laser's coming out one lens in engraving. There's a camera up there, has a separate lens, and it's checking out what it's doing. So they might not be perfectly synchronized. I just finished this job, and I'm going to check out how close they are. So the owl is what I just finished engraving. And I thought I would zoom in and see what does it look like. So I refreshed the background, the camera picture, and just what I'm going to do now is just move this out of the way. And you can see the overlap. Let me hit Control Z so I can go back. It is absolutely perfect. There's a little bit of extra burning that we got on some of the edges. But other than that, everything is perfectly lined up. I'm going to check the text. These are the other ones I engraved. So you can see, again, everything is super close. I engraved some of the settings right on the test piece afterwards. And that's all lining up really well. You know what? I had another idea. I was just going to engrave the time, how long it took the owl and the settings I used, but I thought let's do a little check of this camera. Let's do some registration marks. So I have the green and the blue layer. This will be engrave, and these will be a score. And I'm just going to put them at the extremes. So in the corners, centers, and like so. And this will get engraved. I'll refresh the image. They're not on the board right now. I'll refresh the image, then we can see a little bit about the lens, where it's accurate, maybe where it's not, or if it's really, really good. Here's what it's going to do, and we are looking at about 18 seconds to run this test. All right, fire in the hole. And so now I just refresh the picture. Let's zoom in and have a look. And that's pretty good. So you can see there's the shadow. It's off just a little bit over there. Here we're bang on with that one right there, like we're right overlapping. Let me go around and have a look. So I had a quick look, and as I expected, the stuff in the center is really, really good. I wish there was a little information at the bottom where the cursor was, so when I move it around there was actual coordinates. That'd be sort of handy so you could just measure stuff that way. But as you can see, everything is really lined up. Even most of the corners are really good. There's only one corner that's off a little bit more compared to the others. But if you think about, oh shoot, just moved it there. Yeah, if we had some type of measurement that we could do on that, but it's going to be fractions of millimeters on there. So I'm pretty impressed. This was the only corner that this one was off the most. All the other positions are really, really good. But the top left on here, again, that's not a whole lot, but that was the largest error anywhere on this little grid map that I did for the test. So I'm glad I did the test, and hopefully that builds confidence for other folks with the camera. It's built it for me. I barely have enough room on my terrible bench, but we're going to use this conveyor feature. I picked up a whole bunch of these from the dollar store. They're triangular. So what we're going to see is how the batch processing system on the conveyor will put your image correct orientation no matter how your object is. Let's show you how we do this. Standard procedure, you do your autofocus. You're going to refresh the camera. And the first one that you do, that you have on the conveyor, this is essentially going to be your master. So you want to get that right. I just picked a Chewbacca head, and I aligned everything exactly where I want it. I got the engraving settings where I want. These are just little bamboo ones I got from the dollar store. 100% power on the blue light will go 500 millimeters per second, 120 lines per centimeter. And then you'll go up here and you select conveyor batch. I will do a conveyor large in a moment. Select what you want to engrave, and then we're just going to hit on frame material and let the automated process begin. You can see here it detected it, so we'll just hit fill. I'm going to frame it just to double check everything. So far that looks good. You go to process. You do need your internet connection for this. I guess this bounces it off the Xtool servers or whatever. It's recognizing it, it's ready to go, and it'll generate a preview in a moment. Looks good on the little preview on the conveyor with the camera. There's the image, and we just follow the prompts. I'm going to close the lid, leave a little bit of room. You need your other ones to pass through, so make sure you got enough room for that. I laid out the other ones that we're going to engrave. You got to have a little bit of spacing. We'll let the orientation take care of itself. I wouldn't go all the way to the extremes, kind of keep it in the good spots. Keep in mind this is also in beta, so it will be improving as time goes on. We got some noise because I turned on the fan, and we'll just let it take care of itself. First one is wrapping up. It's going to complete, and let's see how this handles it. So there we go. It just went ahead and did it. It's fully automated. You don't have to push any other buttons other than just telling it when to stop. And every single one of them, it got it pretty good. There's the odd one that might be off center just a little bit. This is still in beta. I flipped all of them over just to run it again, just to see if there's any issues. Now again, for something like this, it's kind of dumb because it's just going to randomly pick an orientation. So be mindful of that depending on what you're engraving. But this is great. Yes, I know you could make a jig and maybe it fits 10 at a time or whatever it is. Perhaps you don't have the tools or resources to make yourself jigs. You can just throw stuff on the conveyor and just let it take care of itself and make life much easier. It might be faster to do a jig and push the button and all that stuff, but maybe you're not great at doing jigs. You just don't have the time. You got these little jobs you want to do. This does make your life pretty easy. If you have an assistant, all they got to do is put stuff over there, have a little basket to catch it over here, and just let the system take over. Again, this is in beta, and there is a suggestion I will make to improve. It'll come in handy for the batches, but just overall for the camera and laser system. I spent my career in engineering doing precision laser measurement systems, some ablation systems as well. So I'm very familiar with calibration of cameras and lasers. So when you first start the machine, there's a calibration you go through. It makes two little hash marks on there, and you go into the software to do the alignment. All you really need to do is just expand that. Have a larger target, so the same photo paper, maybe a larger format to do the full engravable area, and just have multiple hash marks all along, and just repeat the same process. That's way you can correct the lens in all the different areas, and that will improve the accuracy, especially for the batches and things like that. So again, Xtool is in beta. They're listening to suggestions from users, also folks like myself. I'll chat with them some more via email if they want some input. But that, I think, would really help with just improving the accuracy on this stuff as well, although it did a pretty great job of this. So now we will do a long engraving using the conveyor. I got this super cheap barbecue scraper from the dollar store. Bamboo stinks when you engrave it, but we're going to use it anyways. I selected the conveyor large from the drop down. I got Ricky from the Trailer Park Boys saying smokes, let's go. So we'll have that in the main part of the scraper. This should hopefully go up the handle. The framing is interesting. We start the framing, it takes a moment, and now what it does is it shows you the boundaries and it just sort of pulses the conveyor along. If you stop the framing right here, it's just going to stop and it thinks this is your new start position. So if you start it, just let it finish, or if you stop it, you got to reset things a little bit. So I'm just going to watch to see where it goes, how far up the handle. I might have to just move the scraper down a little bit or push the graphic up a bit. I want to get the smokes let's go on the handle. Again, this is beta, so maybe this gets updated as well at some point. Another thing is ensuring that it's straight. So I just took a tape measure, measured here and measured here. So I haven't done a lot with the conveyor for the large engraving, the long stuff, but I'll just do a quick test so you can see how it turns out. I gotta say that actually worked out pretty good. I just used some pieces of scrap wood to test it, get the general idea. This was my first sort of real thing I've done on it. I did go back over afterwards just to re-hit this. It was not quite as dark as the text, but we centered it pretty good. And that's neat. You can now expand your engravable area. You wouldn't be able to do something like this with the F1 Ultra. You put the conveyor on, you can handle larger items now. So that's really, really helpful depending on what you're doing. Now, of course, if I was doing a bunch of these, I am very fortunate. I have the Xtool S1. That would be the ideal thing for this, but not everyone has all the different systems out there. Now, about 99% of my videos are all about fountain pens. And so this machine can cut metal. We have a fountain pen nib here that I pulled out. This is from a pen called the Jinhao X159. I want to make this nib more flexible, So this little slit that's on there, that we can't get the focus right there a little bit. I wanted to extend it further down and then possibly even do a cross cut there. That'll give more flexibility to the nib, at least in theory. I just measured this. It's just under 0.3 millimeters. So that's within the range that this machine is supposed to be able to cut its stainless steel. Let me line this up and give it a try. It's all set up, ready to go. I'm going to cut essentially a cross on here. It says it will take 15 seconds, so I'm going to find out pretty quick if this works or not. So I can't 100% tell if that's through or not. I don't think it quite made it through. I'm going to hit that one more time. I had to run the cuts a few more times, but we got it through. The one going around here, just because it is radiused, so the distance is getting a little bit further away, wasn't quite perfect. I'd probably do this in the rotary moving forward. Also, we are absolutely getting some heat on there. Possibly I can have a little jig set up where this goes on a sponge or something like that, just to help keep it cool. I put the macro lens on so we can compare. So that slit there, that is done from the factory with a mega thin slitting disc. And here we are with the laser. We are through. I've adjusted the nib a little bit. Let's see how much more flex we can get. Let's write with it. So let's just do a super quick test. I'll write with it with no pressure. So this is how the pen would normally write. But now that I cut that slit in there, it's going to have a lot more flexibility. So let's try this. So if I push down on it, it opens it up. And we get flex in the pen now. So here's a better look here. You can just see the difference. So having this laser be able to cut metal, whether you're doing artwork or you're doing something like this and modifying something you already have to make it work a little bit differently, you need some precision cuts. This is pretty slick. Next thing I'm doing is one of these super cheap straight razors you get on Aliexpress. Fun to practice doing work with on steel and blades. Let's see what we can do. I just quickly have this sort of crest with an elk in it and then some text that I put on there. Here are the settings for the graphic, and here we are for engraving the text. Here it is fresh off the laser. What I'm going to do now is actually just put a little metal polish on there and just clean that up. I'm just using some of this Mother's wheel polish that I have, and we'll see how it works. And be careful not to slice your finger open when you're doing this stuff. I buffed it out and then just cleaned it, and that's not too bad. Let's get you in close. It's nice and dark. Everything looks pretty good, and the detail's good. You got to sort of pick the logo with the size you're going and don't go too much detail. I should probably, simplify that a little bit more. And this is what's on the flip side of the razor when it comes, the old gold dollar that's just printed on there. That could rub off probably with some alcohol and stuff like that. But you can see they don't go into too much detail. So that's one thing to learn on the blades here as well when you're going small. I want to take it a step further. We'll see if I have time in this video or not. Maybe it'll be a follow-up. But I want to make some custom scales. So you can just see I ordered 2 of these razors. Just how kind of garbage these. They're so cheap. What can you expect? But I have another one that I got years ago, and I made these scales from some animal horn, and that looks not too bad. Even made the spacer out of metal there as well. So that's kind of cool. So we'll see if I can get it in this video, but most likely it'll be another time. I'll finish off this with a cool looking set of scales. I'm thinking I'll go with acrylic. Maybe those get engraved. We'll see. Or maybe I could do a metal inlay by using the cutting feature. I'll show you one thing I would like to see them update on the XCS software. So here we have a bolt, just been playing around with it. Let's say you want to clean it off and do multiple passes. So I got my circle, we're using the fiber, got my settings, and we're going to do 5 passes. But I can't change the sweep angle. When you do the embossing, you can have, I think the default's 15 degrees, so it'll do a pass this way, 15 degrees, and so on and so on and so on. But when you're doing just regular laser work, let's say engraving, they just need a little checkbox on here that allows you to change the angle each time, or else what will happen, you'll do multiple passes, and then in your target, you will end up having essentially banding because you're coming at the same direction every single time versus you can sweep across. They have that on Lightburn. The functionality is here. They just need a little box on the software. The workaround for the time being, of course, is manual mode. Being able to enable a sweep feature right in the XCS software would be fantastic. I found this lighter in my car. I engraved it a long time ago. I can't remember if this was with my laser pecker or just the regular Xtool F1, so low output power IR lasers, non-fiber, just straight diode. So then I flipped it over, and we did it with the fiber laser here on the Ultra, and so it's going right down to the base metal. You can see the difference. So those other lasers were just sort of market. It didn't actually really ablate and remove and vaporize material. That's what's happening here. So we're going right through the plating, right down to the base metal, and you can feel that engraving that's in there. So we'll shut things down there. I hope the video helped you better understand the Ultra, what it can do, what it can't do, a few little suggestions I came up with, and also just showing some of the use cases why, a lot of people just look at this machine and say, oh, it has a fiber laser now. Yes, it has a fiber laser, but don't dismiss the diode laser. It is super handy for being able to do all sorts of different projects. So we'll shut it down there. Don't forget, if you are interested in one of these, this is something that you think will fit the bill for you. It's not a whole bunch, but it does save a little bit. $80 off if you use the code XTOOLDO. I want to thank Xtool for sending this to me. For you, the viewer watching this, you didn't see me do any rotary stuff. I do have the chuck. I have some rotary jobs I'm going to do. One of them, it's not going to be with this pen, but I have a titanium fountain pen, and I'm going to get some help from a laser engraving master who engraves fountain pens, metal ones. We're going to anodize it and then do some cool engraving to it. So that's going to be a special video all on its own because there's going to be a lot of detail on that one. That's going to be a ton of fun. Keep your eyes peeled for that. Again, all the information and stuff like that I'll try to put down in the description. If you haven't been clicking around on the screen yet, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe. We'll catch you next time.